Hello everyone, this is Hari again, and you are in week number 4 of Artificial Intelligence Unit. In the last week, you basically applied one of the step of machine learning model building, and the step is called as pre-processing of the data. So in pre-processing, what you did basically, you processed iris dataset. And for processing this iris dataset, you used a URL in your Python program to process this dataset. That is this dataset. What you are going to do in this week, you are going to download this dataset. So in order to download this dataset, you can download directly from the website or from publicly available databases, and you can keep a local copy of this dataset, or you can download from Brightspace. So and then you will apply some initial steps on this local copy of iris dataset, and then you will apply steps for model building. So in the next slide, I will give a quick recap of what you have done as of now in the lab. So if you remember, in the last week lab session, we used this generic model, and this model has 4 main stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. So in this lab session, the aim is to complete all these 4 stages. In lab third, that is in the last week, what you did, you completed only this one, this step, that is pre-processing of the data. And the data was iris data set, which was a label data set. It consists of 4 columns for feature vector and the last column. So these 4 columns represents feature vector, and the last column represents class label, the type of flowers based on the input you will provide to your model. And the aim is to predict the output, that is this output, using the input. So basically you are going to build a model M, and what this model will do, this model will work as a function. So you can say if you have input X, that is this is represented as X, you want to find out Y, that is this class label. And how you will get this? If you will use a model M. So you can say F such that X to Y. So basically you are going to find out a relationship between X and Y with the help of this model. So when you are creating the model works using some parameters. We will discuss all these things in detail in this week lecture session, but just for your information, I just thought to share these details. So in the last week, you basically worked on this part and you applied some initial steps. So this week, what you are going to do, you are going to create training dataset and test dataset. This process called as creating a valid dataset. So valid dataset means creating, if your dataset is D, if D represents a dataset. So basically what you are going to do, you are creating two parts from this dataset D. The first dataset can be called as D training dataset and D test dataset. So this is what you will do, and then you will start learning process. So in the learning process, you will basically make a model learn, or when I say make a model learn means you are going to implement algorithms, machine learning algorithms, and then you will train your model by applying several steps which you can see here. And then once the training is done, what you will do, you will consider that model as your final model, and then you will use your test data to test the working of this model. This model is working correctly or not. When I say working correctly, it means that the model, that is F, such that x to y, it is able to predict the correct outcome or not. And then you will validate your model using the new data, and this process called as prediction. So we will discuss all these things one by one in this lab session with the help of programming example. So overview of supervised learning technique. In this lab, we will use scikit-learn, which contains a rich library, which you can use for implementing your machine learning algorithms. So you can use scikit-learn for supervised classification. You can use scikit-learn for supervised and unsupervised clustering algorithm. You can use scikit-learn for supervised regression. So if you remember, if you have watched the video, then supervised learning, there are two main techniques fall under supervised learning technique. The first technique called as classification, and the second technique called as regression. So you can implement both. That is, you can achieve classification of data, you can achieve regression of the data with the help of scikit-learn library. So machine learning algorithms in scikit-learn are written in Python. Why it is Python? Where C stands for C language. C is a programming language. So that is the reason we call it Python. Python translated in C code for performance enhancement. Why we are doing this? Because we would like to achieve high performance. Scikit-learn API is very simple and easy to use, so there is no problem in using. You can simply import the scikit-learn in your program, and then you can call various functions which you want for your machine learning model development. So this is a simple overview of scikit-learn which you are going to use in your program. Further reading, I have included some URL which you can use for getting more information in how to use scikit-learn, and you will get various functions, some programming example if you use these URLs, these websites for further reading. So before going in detail, I just want to discuss some basic terminologies which you should know when you are implementing the program for building your machine learning model. So the first thing is you should understand what is the meaning of instances, what is the meaning of features. In data set, when you will start implementing your model for the given data set, so in the data set you will get instances, you will get features. So you should understand, you should know what is the meaning of instances, what is the meaning of features. Then you can implement or you can build your model easily. So let me give a quick overview of what is the meaning of instances and features. So scikit-learn, what I said, you are going to use scikit-learn for implementing your program. And when you are using scikit-learn basically it heavily relies on NumPy. NumPy is a library to perform mathematical operations. In scikit-learn, if you are using NumPy or other associated libraries, then you will basically convert your data set in the form of instances and features, so that you can use NumPy library, and in NumPy basically we represent data set in the form of instances and feature like an array. So suppose you have a data set like this. So this is instance 1, I1, I'm calling it I1, instance 2, I2, instance 3, I3. So row represents instances and column represents features. Feature 1, feature 2, and this is class label. So suppose here you have instance, let's say 200, the value for feature vector. This instance 1 and feature vector 1 is 200, this is 150. This is, let's say, 150, 60, 75, and let's say 200. And this is class label 1, class label 2, class label 3. So this is your data set, and you are going to represent this data set using NumPy. So how you will represent this? So you will basically create array, and this array will look like this. So first row will be like this, 200, 150. Then comma, second row 150, 60, third row 75, 200. This is how you will represent if you are using scikit-learn and NumPy. So this is instance 1, this is my instance 1, this is my instance 2, and this one, that is the third one, is my instance 3. So, and this data set now it is represented like an array, like this. So you can do this with the help of NumPy as an array. Assume that your data set consists of 2 instances and each instance has 2 features. So we will discuss one example here. So this is instance 1, this is instance 2, and it has 2 features. First feature is called as height and the second feature is called as weight. So this is the data set, and in this data set you have 2 instances and 2 features. So if you are going to represent this data set in the form of programming code in Python with the help of NumPy using scikit, so how it will be represented? So you need to import NumPy, np is the object. So data set is the data set. So this data set is, you can say, data set is the variable name of this data set is equal to, that is this. So you are going to represent this in the form of Python programming. How you can do this? Np is the object, so you can access the function given here with the help of np. So np array, and this is 200, 100. So this is 200, this is here 100, feature vector 2. So this whole is instance 1. Similarly, 200, this should be 210 basically. So 210 is this, 100, 110 is this, and this whole is instance 2. You can see it here. So this is how you will represent your data set in Python using Python programming with the help of NumPy. Defining instances and features. So as you already know from week number 3rd lab, a training data set consists of what? Instances and features, classification labels, class label. This is what you already saw in the last week lab session when we discussed iris dataset. So in iris dataset you had 4 feature vector and 1 class label. So this is feature vector 1, feature vector 2, feature vector 3, feature vector 4, and this is class label. So in iris dataset, if you used shape function for your dataset, you got the outcome 150, 5. So this 5th row is for the class label, and first 4 row is feature vector. So like in my example, I have given example here. Yeah. So this is the example. Let me use this example to explain. So in this example, in this data set, This is my data set. And in this example, you have 4 instances. If you are going to relate this example with iris dataset, then in iris dataset, how many instances you had? You had instance 1 until instance 150 instances, and 4 feature vector. Feature vector is equal to 4. Instances is equal to 150. And this is your class label, where in iris dataset, class label represents flower types. So here, if you are going to use instances and features, so we basically apply categorical labels to represent the labels. So here 0, I use 0 to represent basketball player. On the other hand, I use 1 to represent ballerina player. So this one is 0, this one is 1, this one is 0, this one is 1. So this is how I will represent my class label. So if I am getting the output is 0, so what it represents, it will represent basketball player. If the output is 1, it will represent ballerina player. Now we will convert this data set with the help of Python programming, that is NumPy and scikit-learn, in the next slide. So to provide the Python code, so you can see here in the previous slide, if you have noticed, we have 4 instances. So if you are using array to represent this, so it will be represented like 200, 100, 150, 40. Then this one instance third, 180, 90, and the last one will be 160, 60. Yeah, so this is how we will represent. So this is instance 1, that is this one. This is instance 2, that is this one. This is instance 3, that is this one. And this is instance 4, that is this one. And these value represents the features. So we will see this, the example which is given here. So you can see instance 1, instance 2, instance 3, instance 4. And what is this? 0. What we assumed in the previous slide, if you have noticed, we assumed that if 0 represents basketball player, 1 represents ballerina player. So 0 1 0 1, and the same approach we will use to represent our code. So 0 1 0 1. So this is how you will convert your data set in the form of programming code. So the provided training data set can be translated in the Python programming code. So this is the approach you are going to follow when you will start writing your program, and you can understand your program, or you can implement your program easily without any problem. Now defining instances and features. So we will discuss one example where we'll apply the approach based on what we discussed. So this is the data set, and I call it training data set, and this is my test data set. So this data set, originally it consists of 9 instances. How many instances were there in this data set? 9 instances, starting from instance 1 until instance 9. So what I did, I'm calling this data set as D, and I divided this data set as training data set and test data set to build my machine learning model. So my training data set is given here, and my test data set is, that is this. So this is what I did in this slide. Now, what approach we discussed so far will apply to represent this training data set in the form of programming, Python programming code, and the same approach will apply for this. And then we will develop the model. We will talk about the model development. So what we are doing in the first step, if you noticed, based on the general model, you have a raw data. This data is labeled data. So this is a labeled data set. Then here, what you are doing, you are creating valid data set, that is training data set and test data set. So you are applying this, the first step, that is pre-processing of the data. Now training the algorithm in scikit-learn. So what we'll do, So here we are going to apply one of the supervised learning technique, and the name of the algorithm or the technique is KNN algorithm, K nearest neighbor algorithm, and this is one of the supervised classification algorithm. We will discuss this algorithm in detail in the lecture session. During the lecture session, I will discuss this algorithm, and then you will get a clear idea about what is KNN algorithm. So if you are going to implement KNN algorithm for the given data set, that is for this data set, where this is my training data set and this is my test data set, and you are going to apply one of the supervised learning technique for the given data set, then this is the program. So what you need to do, you need to first import the library for KNN, So from scikit-learn.neighbors import kneighbor classifier. Then what we did in the previous slide, when I explained example, I said scikit-learn sklearn heavily depends upon numpy, so we will use numpy as np, and then we will represent categorical data set for the class label, and this is my training data. So I used, let me go back to the previous slide. Here 0 for basketball player, 1 for ballerina. So 0 0 0 0 4 0 3 ones. So same thing you will see here. If you will see the code, so 0 0 0 0 1 1 1. So 4 0 for basketball player and 1 for ballerina player. So this is the class label. Now training data set 200 100. Now try to relate this with this example. Training data set 200 100. Next one will be 220 110. 220 110. Similarly, third instance, fourth instance, fifth instance, sixth instance, and seventh instance. So in training data set, we have 7 instances. So this is how I represent my training data set and class label. Now similar approach I will apply for representing test data set. So in test data set, I have just 2 instances, 150 56 instance number 1 in test data set, 210 and 130 instance 2, and then this is simple print statement to say training KNN algorithm, and then this is the main step. So we are going to apply classification. So classifier, we use classifier. Which classifier? Name of the classifier you need to specify. How many neighbors you want to check. The number of k in this example is 1. You can choose more if you want. And then fitting the model. So in order to apply fit, this is the function, fit function, classifier dot fit. What you want to fit? You want to fit the classifier for training data set. Training data set, that is for the instances given in this training data set, and you want to map. So this is your input, training data set, that is instances given in the training data set will be input. So this will be your x, and you would like to map with the label, on the label, that is y, that is this 0011, using what? Using f. So here f is nothing but your KNN classifier, that is this classifier, and then print successful. If everything works fine, then you will get this outcome. Now we will see this in Jupyter Notebook. So this is what you are doing. So this is the example I explained. This is how you will translate this example in Python programming. Import numpy as np. This is 200 instance 1, 210 110 is instance 2. Then if you are converting this in translating this example, this data set in the Python programming, this is the Python program. I already implemented this. Let me check it is working fine or not, or is there any error. It is in process. So it worked fine. Then this is my second example where I created class label for I applied categorical data categorical representation for the class label where basketball player for representing basketball player I used 0 and 1 represents ballerina player. So this is 0 for basketball, 1 for this, 0 for this, 1 for this. So this is how I represented this data set in the form of Python programming code. And the same thing is given here. Import numpy as np training underscore dataset. The name of this dataset is training underscore dataset. If you do not like this name, you can use any other name of your choice. Then np is the object for numpy because I am interested in using array from this np library. So np dot array instance 1, instance 2, instance 3, and this is instance number 4, and class label 0101. So this is how you can translate your data set in the form of Python programming. Let me run this. It is working fine. Now this is the training data set and this is the test data set. Now we will represent this data set, training data set and test data set in Python programming. So simply the idea is very simple. Import numpy as np training data set np.array 200 100 instance 1, 210 110 instance 2, 210 130, 210 130 instance 3rd, 230 90, 230 90 instance 3, 150 40 instance 4, 160 55, 160 55 instance 5, instance 6, 160 75 instance 7. And then for test data, first instance is that is instance 8, 150 56, 150 56. Instance 9, 210 130, 210 130. Training label, so basketball, for basketball player 0. How many times? 0 for first, 0 is here. Basketball player again 0. Basketball player again 0. Basketball player again 0. Then ballerina player 1. Ballerina player 1. Ballerina player 1. And here we do not know, and what we want, our model, that is our machine learning model, should predict what will be the class label if height is 150, weight is 50. If height is 210, weight is 130 for instance 9. So this is what I would like to find out for my test data using the KNN model. Now, what we'll do next, let me open the slide now. So this is how you will represent, and let me test this code before going further. This code is working fine. Now, let me move to the next slide. Now getting automatic prediction. So we would like to predict what will be the class label for test data set. So for prediction, we'll use predict function. This is the predict function which we'll use for prediction. So this is the same program, same library. There is no change. There is no change. No change in this training data set, test data set, no change. Simple print statement to uh, get this message on output screen. Classifier, the same, no change. This is for fitting. Input X, output Y. I already explained this, X to Y. This is training finished. So we completed the training process. Training process is done until this is done. Now for prediction, I used a simple print statement. If you do not want to use, there is no problem. I used a counter to predict all the instances present in test dataset. So presently I have just two instances, instance 8 and instance 9. If there are, let's say, 20 instances, so this counter will keep on running until all the prediction will be done for the instances given in the training dataset. So for prediction, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use predict function. I already said. So for prediction is equal to classifier predict for which data set? For the test data set. And how many instances I have? My test data set, this data set is specified here. That is this, using this line. Test underscore test it. Test prediction is equal to classifier dot predict test underscore data set. And it will keep on running until there is any instance present in this data set. So for predict underscore label, predict the label, class label, that is this, predict the label in prediction. In prediction, simply print and predict the label name, and counter will keep on running. So this is how prediction, you can write the code for prediction. Now see the example. So this is importing the library, no change, importing the numpy, then specifying your training data set, specifying your test data set, specifying training label, then telling the displaying a message on output. Then this is for KNN classifier, this is fitting, this is training, done. And then for prediction, simply print a message, which I did. If you do not want to do this, you can, it's your completely up to you. Then counter one for running the loop, and then prediction is equal to classifier dot predict test underscore data set. This test underscore data set is this. So I would like to run the prediction for two instances. Instance one, that is this 156, and instance 2, 210, 130. And my loop will run for both the instances. And then I will get, I have written a print statement. So predict label for instance, counter will run is predicted label. So I will get predicted label, and counter will run until there is any instance present in the test underscore data set. So when I will run this code, let me run this code to see how it is working. So if it is working, so you will get this uh, predicted label for instance 1 is 1, predicted label for instance 2 is 0. So this instance 1 is instance 8 in the data set, and this is instance 9 in the data set. So 1 means ballerina for the first instance data set data for the instance 1, that is instance 8 in the test data, and instance 9 0. Now let me move back to this. So if it is clear, I believe that it is now clear to you. And this program is for KNN classifier, K nearest neighbor classifier. Now the best thing in machine learning is, by making a little change, you can use the same program for any other. You can apply any other algorithms for, and you can simply import the classifier, and you can run the same program for any other, using any other algorithms. So let me show you. So I have given one exercise. So you can change the value of k. If you will increase the value of k, and then try to run your program, then see what will happen, and collect your result. Make observation if you are changing the value of k. So if you are changing the value of k, where you are going to make the change, you are going to make the change in this. So one will be, if initially it is 1, if it is 2, then what will happen? If it is 3, then what will happen? If it is 4, then what will happen? You need to run and see the outcome of your program, and understand how your model is changing the outcome if you are changing the value of k. Now suppose you are going to use the same program, you are going to use the same data set, test data, training data, and you are not interested to apply KNN. You would like to apply decision tree. Then what will happen? Or you want to implement both the model, like KNN as well as decision tree, and you want to see which model is showing better result. So in order to identify or evaluate model performance, what you can do, you need to implement various models. So for example, for the same data set, training data set and test data set, you are interested to apply decision tree. So what you need to do, where you need to make the changes. So you can see here, changing one line of code will allow you to use different machine learning classifier. You have not to make more changes. severe change is not required or major change is not required in your program. The example below shows decision tree algorithm instead of KNN. So in this example, you will see. So what we did in last example, this is the line we using this the first line. We imported KNN classifier. Now, if you want to import decision tree classifier, what you need to do? Simply add this line in your program. So from scikit-learn import tree, importing decision tree classifier. This is the same line I'm using here. This is my training label 0000111. My representation of my training data set, representation of my test data set. This is for decision tree. So in previous example, I used classifier is equal to this classifier name dot KNN classifier, and I specified the value of k, and then classifier dot fit the same training data set and training label, and then printing the statement, printing for prediction, running the counter. Why we are running the counter? I already explained this. We are running the loop for all the instances present in the test data set. This loop will keep on running until there is any instance present in the test data set. Now let us see this example, because in program what I did, I implemented both the classifier in one program. So this is for KNN classifier. I already explained this line. This is numpy. This is import numpy. This tree is import tree is for decision tree. Then I specified my training data set. I have 7 instances: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Exactly the same data test training data set I am using. Then in my test data set, I have just 2 instances: instance 1, instance 2. For categorical representation, I am using 0 and 1. So this is training label representation. Now you implemented this part of the code, that is line number 14, 15, 16, and 17 for KNN, which we already discussed. Then line number 21, 22, 23, and 24 is for decision tree classifier. So you can see here, if you are comparing, so what I'm doing here, classifier, the same classifier. Here simply you are using specifying the name of your algorithm. For if you see line number 15 and compare it with line number 22, so there is not much difference. Here the name of the classifier is KNN classifier. Here the name of the classifier is decision tree classifier. Then if you compare line number 16 with line number 23rd, then there is no change. Classifier dot fit. So this line number 16 will fit your model for KNN classifier. On the other hand, line number 23rd will fit your model for decision tree classifier. So training finished for KNN classifier, line number 17. Training finished for decision tree classifier, line number 24. Then for prediction, there is no change. You are using the same set of code starting from line number 28 until line number 33 for KNN classifier, and the same code will be used by decision tree classifier. And when you will run this, you will be able to see the outcome of your program. If you want to see the outcome of both, then what you can do, you can paste this set of code here, so that you will be able to see the outcome of KNN classifier and outcome of decision tree classifier. Now let me run this code. So here, this is the outcome for KNN classifier, and these 4-5 line represents the outcome of decision tree classifier. So if in future in program, when you are writing a program for other classifier or other machine learning model, you are implementing other machine learning algorithms, you are implementing, what you need to do, you need to make the changes, or you need to include the code of for the classifier. You need to import the library for those classifier, and then just complete your program, run, and see the outcome. In this program, what I'm doing, I'm just printing the outcome, predicted outcome. I'm not evaluating the performance of my algorithms. So when I say performance of algorithms means in this program, I implemented two algorithms. One is KNN classifier algorithm, another one is decision tree algorithms. And in the lecture session, my plan is to cover both these algorithms so that you will be able to understand how these two algorithms works when we implement this. Because here I'm just calling this function, but what is the working of this algorithm? It is unclear. So I will cover the working of the KNN algorithm and decision tree classifier in the lecture session in detail with example. Now let me move back to the slides. So this is what I want you to understand. And in the lab session, what you need to do, you are going to use the same code, same program. If you remember, in the last week, you implemented a program, lab 3 program. You created your Colab file or Python programming file. You are going to use the same Python programming file. If you have not completed the program, please complete. Otherwise, you have to complete what you did last week. Then you are going to work on large data set. What I said last week, when you implemented your program, you used URL to read the data. You specified a URL in your program to read the data set. Let me open the program first. Open the program, and yeah, so this one. So in the program, you completed the installation process for the libraries. Then you checked the version. Then you loaded the data. For loading the data, you used this this URL. So this is the URL I'm talking about. So but in this lab, that is in lab number 4, you are not going to use the URL. What you are doing, you will download the data set from the URL, or you can download the data set from the Brightspace. If you will check your Brightspace link, then here I created 4 folders for this week. So week number 4, introduction to machine learning lecture. So like in lecture section, you will get just the lecture material. In the lab, you will get lab workbook, some information related to lab workbook, and I will upload the video. Then in the data set, you will get iris data set and adult data set. This data set you will use for completing a case study, because my expectation is you, after completing this your first model which you are implementing in lab 3 and lab 4, in lab 4 you will, my expectation is you will be able to finish your first machine learning model, then apply the same approach to complete a case study. I will brief you about the case study in another video, or I will just give you a hint, and then my suggestion is you should try to complete the case study. So you can download iris dataset from here, that is from the Brightspace. So this is the data set. So you are going to work on the data set, and then you will use adult data set. Adult data set is really a challenging data set. It consists of 15 feature vector. In iris data set, it's a toy data set, and you just used 4 feature vectors. Feature vectors were 4. Whereas in adult data set, it has nearly more than, I think, 30,000 instances and 15 feature vectors. So this is adult data set is really a complex data set, and I want you to use this large data set and develop your machine learning model, classifier model. So, and the second point is you will apply pre-processing. Initially, you have already completed pre-processing and you have some part left, that is creating a valid data set, that is creating training data set and test data set. This is what you will do in lab number 4. After that, you will create valid data set, which I already explained here to build your model. Then you will be implementing different machine learning algorithms. So far I explained KNN and decision tree. You can use other machine learning classifier. You can get some references. I suggest you to explore do some research and try to find out new classifier, or I will provide some set of code which will help you for implementing different classifiers. Then you will make your model learn. So you will apply learning process for your model. This is what you will be doing. Then you will analyze your result. So analyze the best result, because what you are doing, suppose you are implementing different learning algorithms. I assume that suppose you are implementing, let's say, 5 algorithms. So the question here is, which algorithm is showing the best result? Shows best result. So this is what you need to check when you are implementing your model. So identifying the best model, this is what you need to do. Then apply predicting the outcome from your model. So implement your model for predicting. So your model is predicting the correct result or correct label, class label or not. This is what you need to do. You need to check. Then analyze model performance using benchmark metrics. So what are the different benchmark metrics you can use? Different benchmark metrics you can use to represent results. So this is what you are doing. And then the first model, if you will complete all these tasks, what does it mean? It means that you have successfully completed your first machine learning model development. So you completed successfully first machine learning model development, and in order to examine your learning, in order to do self assessment, there is a case study given for self assessment. So in this case study, what is my expectation? My expectation is you use adult data set. It is really a difficult data set, and develop machine learning model and apply all the steps which you have implemented for iris dataset, and see your model is working fine or not. The model means the model you are implementing for this dataset. And then that's all. So this is what you are going to do in this lab session. And if there will be any question, you can discuss with me.